kind of does look like a golf simulator now, though.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if you had, instead of the
All you need
TV,
is a screen and once you get the TrackMan, I'm sure there's a golf.
and it's cool because, like, dude, honestly, there's turf.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you could hit balls right off this thing right now.
You seen Alan Jaeger, J-Band's guy?
Familiar with him? I don't know exactly.
On their social media, they have like putting competitions. They have one of those little portable hole things. Yeah. And like before they go home, they gotta sink a putt or whatever.
That's great.
Their little thing. Like China McCarney, the one of their guys. They've been with Jaeger like forever. Like he was one of like Jaeger's like initial disciples, and now he works for him. And it's like he's got like the AAA. It's like Athletes Against Anxiety Foundation thing.
Yeah.
You've probably seen this stuff on social media, but it's funny because that's like their calming thing before they leave work every day.
Get a putt, do a little putting contest.
Sink a putt before you leave work, guys. It's good. It's good for the soul.
It is good for the soul. Makes you feel accomplished.
Tyler's a golfer. I'm not.
Well, we try. A lot easier said than done. I like to think of golfing as kind of like hitting. You never really have it all figured out. You're just trying to put it down the fairway and piece together as many good shots as you can per hole. And the fun doesn't start until you get to the green, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So
we got our fancy sign and backdrop and everything, but what you don't see is the other side. We'll have to put up an actual what do you call it, little like projector things. Smash the golf ball in there, put a little net up on the ceiling.
I'm saying, we could get the readings too once we get that TrackMan in here.
Something would be broke so fast.
Easily. Yeah, we put all this money into this place, it could get destroyed in a matter of minutes.
Yeah. Then we could tell Voida that we were building a golf simulator the whole time, dude.
That was the plan.
That's what we were building.
Mm-hmm.
You play golf a lot?
Try to. Right now, with things being so busy, we're trying to get this Velocity Max program off the ground, and things being busy, I haven't been able to play as much as I did. Especially during COVID, dude. Played a ton of golf during COVID with I got my dad and my brothers into it. So that was kind of something that we had all that downtime.
Is golf a pitcher's thing?
I think so. I think it's very similar to the pitching windup in aspects. Like, you have to be very technical with your movements, and you have to understand when to fire your body at the same time, and the result of where your golf shot goes is a direct result of how your body's moving and how you're transferring your weight and your energy. And it's something that, for me, like, I can always constantly work on. Like, you never have it figured out. Mm-hmm. It's always a work in progress. You're just trying to shoot the best score that you can. But it's like, it's the hardest thing in the world. You got that ball sitting right in front of you. You got that ball sitting right in front of you, just like on a tee. All you got to do is hit it straight.
Yeah, it's too hard for me. It's too nerve-wracking.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Golfers or baseball players, you guys be the judge. All right, guys, welcome back to the Juice Box here in Atlanta, Georgia. Another episode of the Athletek Podcast Baseball Development Show. We've got our own Tyler Haswell here, a.k.a. T-Money, Hazzle Dazzle, T-Hazzle. What else do they call it?
Whatever you feel. Has money
with a Z.
Yeah. Make sure you got the Z on there.
So for you guys that don't know, Tyler grew up in the area, Peachtree Ridge High School.
Yep.
Went to South Carolina and pitched. Tell these guys, when you grew up, baseball around that time in the area, and then, what years were you at South Carolina pitching?
So, starting off with like my time here in Georgia, lived in Lawrenceville, graduated from Peachtree Ridge High School in 2013. Primarily played all of my travel ball leading up to about my sophomore year of high school, just in the local Peachtree Ridge area over at Button Road Park, playing for the Peachtree Ridge Lions travel organization. Nothing too crazy, nothing too huge, but we'd do the fall ball, we'd do the spring ball over there, and it was kind of at that time that I really found my love for the game of baseball. I didn't really start playing until I moved back from Connecticut when I was 8 years old. Kind of got into the Pee Wee and the in the rec ball scene when I was, 8, 9 years old, and did that over at Collins Hill. And then once Peachtree Ridge um, got built up, we moved over to Bunton Road Park and started over there. But my time at South Carolina was there from 2013 to 2018.
Were you born here?
I was born in Nashville. So I was born in Nashville, lived there till I was like 2-ish. Dad's job relocated us back to the Swanee area, kind of over near like South Gwinnett area. Lived there for 2 or 3 years, and then Dad's job forced us to move up to Connecticut for 2 years. Cold as hell, man. Um, wasn't up there for long. Couldn't really dive into many sports. I think one spring for like 2 months, played t-ball and stuff like that, kind of a guys and girls t-ball league. But then 7 years old, Dad got relocated back to Lawrenceville. Parents still live there to this day, so that's kind of where getting into the whole baseball scene, doing the baseball, basketball, playing football, really started to take off for me.
So you moved back here. You said you were 8.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing all the sports. You're playing baseball. You're playing football. You're playing basketball. Like, how early on did you know baseball was your thing? Was that right away, or was that into high school? Like, when did you know?
I tried to do as many things as I could in terms of playing football, playing basketball, playing baseball until I got to 12 to 13 years old and realized that I had a gift with a pretty good arm, and I wasn't going to be a quarterback playing football. For some reason, they put a 5'2", 95 pound kid at defensive end, and that didn't really go over all that well. Was going up against kids that were a lot bigger than me, and just saw myself as an athlete really flourish on the baseball field, and just from a really young age knew that it was something that I loved and that I wanted to keep working at and play the game as long as I possibly could.
So back up for a second. I don't mean to offend anybody on the football in the football spectrum. Coaches, players, I don't mean to offend anybody, but I had an experience playing football. I played football 1 year when I was in 5th grade, and I realized it wasn't for me for a similar reason. I could throw a football when I was a kid. I could legit throw a football. I threw a great spiral. I probably didn't have a cannon of an arm, but I had a decent arm. I was a smaller kid. I mean, in 5th grade, guys, I probably weighed 65 or 70 pounds. Like, I think the heavyweight cutoff was like 90, so I was well below that. But I'm playing like lightweight football in Montana. We lived in Montana at the time. And I remember, the coach's kid played quarterback.
Yep, every time.
And the backup quarterback was the other coach's kid.
Yep.
And, I'm watching them do their thing. And just as a non-biased, non-football guy, I'm like, I can do as good as that or better. And I remember being in practice and, a play gets broken up. I pick up the ball. I sling it back to the coach. And one of the kids is like, dude, you should play quarterback. And I'm like, yeah, I want to. But I didn't. Right. So smaller kid, I ran pretty well. Mm-hmm. They made me a safety. And I was like, okay, I can get with this defense thing. Well, it wasn't like 2 weeks in, man. Then they made me a defensive tackle and an offensive guard. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, this ain't crap. It. Like, I'm not on the bigger end of the kids. I'm playing the big boy positions, and I'm just sitting here blocking for people. It's not really that fun. And then I remember we scrimmaged, we scrimmaged a heavyweight team, and I'm playing guard. I'm playing like left guard, and this big dude, I mean, he's 110 pounds.
Yeah.
And in 5th grade, man, it doesn't sound like a big kid, but. And it's not. It's really not that huge of a kid in 5th grade. But compared to my 68-pound ass, like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I got to block this kid. And I'm like getting all mean and fiery and getting all juiced up. And the kid's like smiling at me across the line. Like, hey, man, I'm about to kind of just move you out of the way and go sack your quarterback. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm just getting manhandled. And that same game, I don't remember what it was. It was like a punt or, something like that. And I just, I got blindsided and leveled by somebody, and I'm like, I don't really want to do this anymore. And, of course, I finished the season. I played. But at the end of that year, there was never a conversation. My parents never asked me if I wanted to play again. I never brought it up again. I just didn't play.
Yeah.
And so I think you're like, I'm asking you, like, when did you know? You're saying 12 or 13. That's kind of when football started going by the wayside.
Yeah,
Same thing for me.
I went back into. I tried it again my 8th grade year because part of me wanted to play in high school because all of my friends played. There was the A and the B team in 8th grade, and I was on the B team. And obviously they'll stick some A kid teams on the B team just to kind of try to balance things out a little bit. But those kids happened to be the guys that played on the defensive line, and I just was not as big as them. And so each day during practice, we're going doing Oklahoma drill, doing pursuit tackling drills, and I'm having to stand flat-footed while my buddy, who's probably 40, 50 pounds heavier than me, is barreling downhill, and you gotta tackle him. Keep your head up, put your face mask in his chest, and I'm just holding on for dear life while they're barreling down, trying to pick which gap they're going through, and just holding on, hopefully that I can get them to the ground and not get trucked.
Right.
So yeah, at that moment, I was like, I think it's time to really put the focus towards baseball.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be basketball. I'm 5'10" at the time, 150 pounds, not dunking over anybody.
Right.
So, and I had the arm. The arm was something that, from a young age, I was kind of always able to do. I was able to throw. I was gifted with just being, if it was a football, if it was a baseball, I just had the ability to throw a ball and throw it, decently hard from the age of 12, and kind of figured out throughout my time that this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. So Tyler's a big part of running our Velocity Max operation here. Him and Greg run that program, and Tyler's given guys a lot of just insight on these things, right? How to throw a ball. Like, can you throw a ball? And with that, I'm going to ask you something here in a second. We've got a lot of young athletes in this building in Atlanta doing stuff with us, training with us, hitting, throwing, pitching, running, all the things. Some of those guys as young as like 8, 9, 10 years old. And, I'll ask you this first, and then I'll kind of go down the road of what I'm talking about. But when did you start realizing that you wanted to pitch? Like, you wanted to be a pitcher? Tyler was a pitcher at his highest level of playing at South Carolina. He pitched. When did you start realizing, I like this pitching thing, getting on the mound and throwing the ball?
I can tell you exactly when it was. My local Peachtree Ridge travel ball team, we went up to Cooperstown. Okay. And 12 years old, our team wasn't expected to do that much. I mean, most of your local travel teams don't have the kind of talent that your, I guess nowadays, your Team Elites or your East Cobbs or your 643s, kind of those local areas. We just we wanted to go up to Cooperstown really for the parents to be able to go up to New York and have a good time for a week. And I was able to pitch against, at that time in our bracket play, the team they were ranked like top 5 best teams to be in our Cooperstown bracket in the whole tournament. And so I get up there, and coach tells me, he's like, you got the ball. I pitched a little bit leading up to that, but did a pretty good job. But, didn't really, I wanted to be, I loved playing third base. I loved playing infield.
So Cooperstown, that was 12?
12 years old.
So is that really when you started, like, pitching?
That was when my coach started realizing that, I had a good arm. And at that time, if you can throw the ball fairly well, like, they're going to try to put you on the mound and give you an opportunity.
Right.
And it just came kind of naturally for me at that time. And I threw really, really well against that top 5 team in the tournament. We ended up beating them. And that was the moment where I told myself, like, okay, let's start taking this a little more seriously, and let's see where this pitching thing goes. You enjoy playing the game of baseball. Let's try to make yourself as versatile as possible from a young age. So that was the time where I was like, okay, this is coming a little more naturally than I thought it was going to, and things just kind of progressed from there.
Right. So we see a lot of guys. Like, I'm thinking of 9. Like, 9 is the age that I'm thinking, because I think that's when kids start throwing off the mound, like kid pitch, right? Like throwing off the mound to hitters. I think at 8, it's still like semi kid pitch, semi coach pitch. Maybe
Mhm.
if it's like majors level, maybe they're doing. I wish it would be all the same. I wish all youth baseball did things all the same and the same. You got to lead off at this
Right.
age, and you got to play this field at this age, and I wish it was universal because it just makes it easier for people to understand. You get so many parents that are like, well, he's in majors this year, and it's just like, how old is he? I don't know what that means. I can look at your kid, and I can see, okay, he has some skills at this age, and that's what I see. But like you see a lot of kids starting to pitch at like
Mhm.
9 and 10. That's when the game is requiring kids to get on the mound and throw the ball towards a hitter. Um, but you're saying you really didn't start towing the rubber until you're 11 or 12 because somebody recognized your potential. Like, do you think that helped or hurt you? Like, what if that age wasn't until 15 or 16? Would that have helped or hurt you? What do you like dive down because we see that now. We see a lot of high school guys that they hadn't really done much pitching to speak of till they're 15 or 16, and then they settle into a really good role. And I'll tell you a quick little story before I let Tyler answer this. I remember being in high school and playing against a guy, a name that you guys are gonna remember. You guys are gonna know this name. I played against him in high school. He was a shortstop. He didn't really pitch much. He got on the rubber and threw now and then. He had a decent arm. He was a decent sized kid. His name was Jacob DeGrom.
Yeah,
Okay.
guy can pitch a little bit.
Right, but nobody really knew that. Everybody saw him as, hey, he's a super athletic looking shortstop, and he's a little bit of a late bloomer, but man, he could play some good ball.
Mhm.
I don't know though. He plays at a small Christian school. Yeah, well, he's not that good because if he played at a 6A school, he'd get. And I remember people saying things like this, and me playing against him. All the guys I grew up with, because I moved to Florida late. He was from the Central Florida area too. I moved there late, so by the time I moved there, he was kind of doing his own thing. But before I lived there, all the guys that I played with in high school played travel ball with him growing up.
Mhm.
And I remember looking at him and thinking, this guy's a really good ball player. Like he's just a good old fashioned ball player. He plays hard. He doesn't really, he's not flashy. He's simple, but he's a good ball player. And fast forward to the later years of high school, junior year and senior year, you know, got to see him play a lot and got to play with him in some of the area all-star games, and you're nominated for all district and stuff like that. And I remember thinking, man, this kid's he's pretty good. Like
Mhm.
he's just Mr. Reliable.
Right.
They ended up going to Stetson, and what was it? His junior year. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. It was his junior year. Started pitching because they realized the potential on the mound as he started developing that arm strength. And now you guys know where he's at now. Um, but dive into that and how that looked for you being a pitcher a little bit later, not quite as late as like a DeGrom. And granted, he pitched throughout his youth, but that wasn't his main thing. What does that do for guys? Like, becoming a specialized pitcher a little bit later and having to maintain being a position player, being an athlete. What does that do for guys?
And I think one thing, starting as an infielder and getting used to getting the ball out quickly, um, trying to throw the ball with an efficient arm slot, like those things only helped me when I got onto the mound and started throwing. Like I said, the ability to throw strikes was something that I was kind of able to do without a ton of instruction. I remember I went to Greg McMichael back in the day, former pitcher for the Braves,
Yeah.
and he taught me the ability and the importance of throwing fastballs for strikes and being consistent with, if you can do one thing, make it be throwing your fastball for strikes, getting ahead of hitters. And that's something that when I started taking pitching more seriously, that I really took pride in, was being able to throw my fastball for strikes and letting the hitters not necessarily hit me, but challenge them, go after them, and don't be afraid to nibble the strike zone. Like hitting, I mean, as you know, you're a hitter, man. Hitting's tough.
Yeah.
Hitting's hard, and
Yep.
if you don't put the pressure on yourself about being so fine and trying to be perfect, like a good Hall of Fame hitter succeeds 3 out of 10 times. That was something that I always in my head was like, man, hitting's hard. They don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
I have complete control over what I can throw, what I feel confident in throwing. And I always took that confidence to the mound, even if maybe I was facing a really, really good team with some really, really good prospects. Like, I knew that if my stuff's on, you're not going to hit me. And I was always confident in that and confident in myself going through, even if I didn't have the experience at 12 years old. Maybe I picked it up a little bit late. I was going to go on the mound and I was going to have confidence. I was going to be confident in my abilities and throw to my strengths. And that started when I worked with Greg McMichael about getting ahead, throwing your fastballs for strikes, and being able to work in and out and then up and down. And that was always a big focus of mine from a young age. Was we can develop the off-speed pitches. We can work on consistency, but at the end of the day, man, you got to be able to throw fastballs for strikes. You got to be able to be consistent, and if you can do that, you can get a lot of hitters out. You know, at the young age of 12 and 13, and I've been doing a little bit of coaching now with that age group, like the importance of just getting ahead of hitters and being able to throw a curveball every now and then or throw a changeup every now and then is important. But man, if you can get a hit or 0-2, like you got him in the palm of your hand. And just being able to execute one pitch and not overthinking all those things. And to answer your question, that was what I really focused on from a young age. It wasn't, I don't know if I'm a good pitcher or not. I just know that I'm supposed to get on the mound and I'm supposed to get outs, and I want to help my team win. And that was my goal. If I was going to start, if I was going to close, was I want to put my team in a position to win ball games. And I know that if I get on the mound and throw strikes, I give my team a chance to win. And that was the simple thinking that I wanted to take when I was on the mound, is not where my mechanics are, where my body is. Am I staying behind the rubber? Am I doing this, that, and the other? Because it's so easy to get caught up in the overthinking of it.
Oh, yeah.
Taking a complex movement and trying to simplify it and attacking a hitter. Because at the end of the day, you can do all the things in the world to prepare your body, but you still got to get that hitter out.
Right. No, and I think that's huge, man. Like, just understanding that you always have to get the hitter out.
Mm-hmm.
And you just said it a little bit ago. Greg says it all the time. Greg's a little bit more harsh when he says it. He says, guys, hitters suck.
Right.
Because they're going to get themselves out. And, like, as a hitter, that rings so true to me. Like, how many times do you come back to the dugout like, God, man, he threw me the perfect pitch. I just missed it. Well, yeah, you missed it.
Mm-hmm.
You missed it. You got yourself out. It was right down the middle. It was a great pitch to hit. You got yourself out. And if more pitchers could just feed into that, know that, man, you don't have to be so fine. We're just trying to get hitters out.
Right.
They're trying to get hit off you, but that's harder to do than it is to get them out.
Mm-hmm.
If guys start to understand that, man, it makes the process of pitching easier, right? And we're circling all this back around for when guys start pitching. So we're talking about green new pitchers.
Right.
Whether that's at 12 or 13, whether that's at 16 or 17, whether that's at 20. I mean, you see guys sometimes in professional ball, he's a catcher growing up, they turn him into a pitcher.
Right.
New pitchers have to get that through their head, because for so long as a hitter, you've had to tell yourself, man, I'm the guy, I'm the hitter, I'm the guy. And then you almost have to switch gears a little bit and be realistic with yourself and say, well, I'm no longer a hitter anymore. Or maybe I still am. Maybe I still hit, but pitching is quickly becoming my thing. I'm going to be realistic now and understand that hitters pretty much suck.
It's tough.
They don't get hits.
It's hard to do.
They don't get that many hits in comparison to how many at-bats they have.
Right.
And the more that I'm around you guys, you and Greg, and around pitchers and around the Velocity Max program, I'm kind of starting to believe that myself. And I have to switch gears the other way when I coach hitters to make them realize, hey, man, like, let's not think that way. Let's understand what we're trying to do and then be really good at it. At the end of the day, the game is the game. Hitters are going to get out more than 70% of the time on average. Pitchers are going to get hitters out more than 70% on average.
Mm-hmm.
The percentages don't lie; they make sense. Sometimes we manifest these things just about how hard or how much pressure gets built into something that we make the job harder for ourselves.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think that, there's a difference between, doing the J bands, doing the plyo balls, doing the med ball routines to get yourself prepared to ultimately get on the mound. But once you get on the mound, you've got a job to do.
Yeah.
Your job is to throw strikes.
Yeah.
And if you throw strikes, the hitter still got to hit it.
Yeah.
It does no good if you can't throw your fastball for strikes. You're going to be out of the game. That's the quickest way to not pitch again.
Theoretically, you could throw, let's say you threw 50 pitches in a game. Theoretically, you could throw all 50 of those pitches outside of the literal strike zone, and you could get 50 of them as strikes. A couple different ways. The umpire makes bad calls, the hitter chases, or the hitter puts a ball in play that wouldn't have been a strike. Or the hitter could say, you know what, I'm going to really make this guy pound the strike zone. He could take all 50 of them, and if none of them are technically over the white of the plate, they're all 50 going to get called balls. And he won't get a single hitter out, because you can't get a hitter out unless something is portrayed as being over the plate.
Right.
Now those are extremes, right? All 50 of them being considered strikes, or all 50 of them being considered balls. That doesn't happen in a game. But at the end of the day, you want a higher percentage of pitches that are perceived as being over the white of the plate, whether the umpire thinks they are, whether the hitter thinks they are, whether the strike zone dictates that they are. Those are competitive pitches.
Right.
And we talk so much to our pitchers about being competitive. Hey, we're going to miss sometimes, but we want competitive misses. We don't want non-competitive misses. We don't want something that a hitter is going to say, I don't want to fool with that. We want a hitter to try to fool with every single pitch, and sometimes get fooled by those pitches. So, speak to that competitive nature and just how, pitch to pitch, pitchers have to lock into that.
My thing was, I wasn't going to look for the strikeout until the strikeout presented itself. So I could tell a lot about where I needed to place my pitches due to a hitter's swing.
Because you wanted a hitter to put the ball in play.
Because here's the thing. If the hitter puts the ball in play, first pitch, that's a quicker outing for me. That lets me go deeper into a ball game, and this goes back to when I was 12. When I get on the mound, I want to give my team a chance to win. You have a whole field of guys behind you that he's still got to get the ball past. And if he hits it over the fence on a good pitch, you know what? Tip your cap. It is what it is. You flush it and you get back on the mound, and you got to get ready to attack the next hitter.
Right.
It's a good thing sometimes when pitchers are dumb.
Yeah.
When pitchers just don't overthink, oh man, this is the 3-hole hitter. He's the best hitter on their team.
Right.
He's got 25 home runs. He doesn't have 25 home runs against me.
Right. So you're presenting a very sure confidence about yourself.
You got to.
And I'll take that one step further to say, you just told me you were 100% sure when you were pitching that you knew you couldn't have a strikeout on pitch 1 or 2.
Right.
Strikeout's not even an option until pitch number 3, if the other 2 pitches are strikes.
Right.
So with that being said, we know that the first pitch of an at-bat is a very important pitch both for pitcher and hitter, statistically. If we know as a pitcher we're trying to get the hitter to put that ball in play, then wouldn't that mean that we want the hitter to think it's over the white? Yeah. Is a hitter going to swing if he knows the pitch is not over the white?
No. Unless he is just not seeing it that day.
And he's not a good hitter.
Right?
Right. So if we know that, that plays right into that competitive nature. Competitive to a lot of ball players means, I need to be hard ass. I need to compete. I need to be tough. I need to have an edge about me. But guys, competitive really just means you're placing pressure on the other team. You're making it tough on the other team, because how you're presenting yourself is giving them the feeling that you're going to win.
Mm-hmm.
For a pitcher, if you throw the ball over the white of the plate, you're giving the hitter the thought that I have to swing.
Mm-hmm.
I got to swing. If every pitch is close to the white or over the white, I'm going to have to get ready to go into swing mode. And there's the argument that, oh, well, if you throw too many pitches or two, the hitter just gets locked in. Fine.
Yeah.
Then you find another way to stay competitive and then fool him.
It's funny. One stat, and throughout my career, my dad's never been a big stat. Oh, you're hitting this. You get on your OPS is this. Your ERA is this. The one stat that he always reminded me of and was aware of was WHIP. Walks and hits to innings pitched. How many guys are you letting on base? And one of those is walks.
Right.
Okay? I'm fine with giving up hits. I'm fine with that. But if I give somebody a free base and a free opportunity to score off me, that makes it tough on me, especially when there's no outs.
Yeah.
And I think it's 70% of leadoff walks score. 70%. You're digging yourself in a pretty big hole if you're not even throwing the ball over the plate to the leadoff hitter.
And to be clear, guys, like a high percentage of leadoff hits probably score too.
Sure.
But I bet it's not that high.
But they at least earned it.
Right.
They at least earned it. I have complete control over if I throw the ball over the plate or not. And being timid and trying to nitpick and say, oh, I've got to place this fastball perfectly on the black of the plate so that he doesn't hit it. It's not true.
Yeah. So I love this, man. This is what competitive attitude means. This is what a competitive process is all about. And for pitchers, it's everything. Mm-hmm. But let me ask this, because you said you started pitching around 12, around probably 6th grade. Did you have that right away? Obviously you didn't. Obviously you weren't some kind of seasoned 12-year-old pitcher, Greg Maddux at the time. Like, you had to learn a lot of these things. Like, you said that you saw, some high-level pitching coaches during your youth that helped you with some of these things. You were talking about how your dad has these conversations with you, and you guys talked about whip and talked about eliminating walks and stuff like that. All right, so fast forward a little bit. You're in high school. You're at Peachtree Ridge. You're playing travel ball. Where'd you play travel ball? Did you play around here? Like, once you were past the Peachtree Ridge program, did you play somewhere else? Like, where were you at?
So after my freshman year of high school, I was able to work my way onto the varsity roster as a freshman.
Sweet.
Started off at JV, and I was just playing the local, like I said, the Peachtree Ridge youth travel baseball circuit.
Okay.
And once I made my way onto the varsity roster and realized that, okay, I need to start getting some exposure. I need to start putting my name out there in a bigger capacity. I then went over to East Cobb.
Okay.
Now, it wasn't one of those deals where I go over to East Cobb. I'm on the Astros. I'm pitching. I'm right out of the gate. On the best team. This, that, and the other. I got there and I made, it was like the 3 or 4 team at the time.
Yep.
Which I didn't care about.
Yeah.
I wanted to play.
This is as a freshman.
This was going into my sophomore year.
Okay.
So 15, 16.
Okay, good.
I get to East Cobb. It's, everything's just bigger. There's way more competition. Just the talent that was around the park at all times was crazy. But I wanted to play. And I wanted to do both. I wanted to pitch and I wanted to hit and play the field because I really enjoyed something I always enjoyed from a young age was fielding ground balls and making plays in the field.
Yeah.
Like, I loved doing that, and I wanted to be on a team where I could play because you're not going to get that exposure if you don't play.
Yeah.
And I get on the East Cobb Rangers, and I'm doing both. And as the season went on, kind of presented myself as one of the top starters on our team. Mm-hmm. So I was able to pitch against the Astros.
Yeah.
I was able to pitch against the Braves. I was able to, in those travel turns, I was able to pitch against those high level teams, and I almost enjoyed being the underdog. I almost enjoyed being, oh, I'm going to show you. Like, I'm going to get on the mound and I'm going to show you what I got. And like I said, you got to get on there and you got to have a little bit of confidence about yourself and your abilities. It doesn't matter what team you're on.
So at this point, you're playing travel ball. You're at East Cobb. You're on not the top team.
No.
Whether it's the second team, third team, fourth, I don't know. It doesn't matter. How much of that, knowing that, hey, I'm having the opportunity to play the field and pitch just exactly what I want to do, and I'm one of the guys too. I'm confident because of that. They need me. I'm getting an opportunity to pitch against teams that, quite frankly, are probably a step or two ahead of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
How much of that forced you to develop some of that competitive attitude? And did you have it right away? Or was it like, hey, man, I had some failure. I struggled at first, and I'm going to have to figure out how to be a little bit more efficient with what I'm doing?
I think the one thing that I always had was belief in myself as a player. I was not gonna, maybe I was nervous about the situation. I'm pitching under the lights at East Cobb on field one against this team and the other, but it never crept into, am I good enough?
Yeah.
Do I have the ability to get these guys out? Can I compete at this level? I just wanted that opportunity. And I was going to do everything that I could to make the most out of that opportunity. It didn't matter what jersey I was wearing.
Right.
Because if I was given that opportunity, I could make something special happen. And that was my mindset from really young, was I just want that opportunity to prove myself as a baseball player. And all of that is out of my control. But what I can control is myself and my demeanor and how I carry myself on the mound, how I prepare, and ultimately, like, it's in God's hands, man. Like, I don't have any control over the outcome. All I can do is prepare myself mentally to attack hitters and try to play the best brand of baseball that I know Tyler Haswell can play.
Right. No, that's gold right there, man. I mean, guys, what Tyler just said sounds cliche, but I don't know the full story yet. You guys are going to hear it here in a second. I would argue that him discovering that and kind of colliding with that process and situation and everything just lining up, just the East Cobb thing, being on varsity your freshman year, all that stuff kind of lining up at the right time probably set you up for your future success to be able to play at an SEC school. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're right. And you only get so many opportunities, right? You only get so many, especially as a pitcher. Like, as a starter, you get once a week. You get once a week to go out there and throw against whatever team you're throwing against. To me, it didn't matter if it was the worst team in our tournament or if it was the best team in our tournament. I just wanted to throw. And it's not like I went out on the mound and I threw great every single outing. I mean, nobody is. Nobody's going to go out there and throw exactly how they want to throw every single time. But I always loved, from being on the 3-4 team at East Cobb, man, did I love playing against the Astros. I loved the hype around, oh, who's this kid? Who's this kid throwing against the Astros?
Right.
Well, for me, it was, I'm gonna show you who I am, and see if I can make something happen. Yeah. And that kind of transpired into, so I played one summer with the Rangers. Thought maybe I played well enough to get bumped up to a higher level team in my age group. Didn't.
Yeah. Played
with the Rangers again that summer, and then I threw really, really well against some teams at East Cobb, and they finally they gave me a shot to go play with the Astros in Arizona. So I got that call from.
That's your junior year?
That was my junior year.
Yeah.
So that was going into. Okay, so let me back up. My first summer was sophomore year going into junior year.
Okay.
played that fall. The next summer was going into, and at this time I was getting looks. I finally had hit 90 on the radar gun. That was kind of the magic number that, a lot of scouts wanted to see
Yep.
was popping that 9. And so that started to put my name on the map. I threw really well that spring for our varsity program, and that really propelled me into that summer, starting off with the Rangers, and not caring about what team I'm on, just taking advantage of the opportunities that were put in front of me. And I just so happened to kind of take advantage of those, and I got the call asking to go down to Phoenix, Arizona to play in a big end of summer tournament with the Astros, playing with Travis Demerit, Michael Chavis, Josh Hart at the time was a first round draft pick, Brian Navarado, top 5 draft pick catcher in that draft. Like, got to play with some really big names in our class, and that's I threw once or twice in that tournament. Did a couple relief appearances, but didn't throw all too much. But that's when the ball really started to get rolling. And in terms of starting to get recruited by these big level programs, I remember still throwing with the Rangers. It was WWBA at the beginning of July. Throwing against, we're playing, it's the 18U San Diego show.
Mm-hmm.
So we were playing the older age
So is
group.
this your senior? Is this
is going into my senior year. I
going
just
into your
finished
senior
my junior year.
Yeah.
I had some looks from some like Winthrop and College of Charleston, Michigan State,
Sure.
some of those programs.
So back up for a second, Tyler. I want to go over this. Like, your sophomore year going into junior year was your first summer pitching with the Rangers.
Right.
Okay, with the East Cobb Rangers. Okay. Like, at that time, the East Cobb organization didn't think you had enough to pitch for the East Cobb Astros. You guys that know a little bit about travel ball, whether you're here in Atlanta or around the country, you've probably heard of East Cobb Astros. You've probably heard of East Cobb. It's a prestige, right, to play for them. They get good players from around the country to come in and play for them. So, but give the listeners a little bit of a insight on where you were at, because I think right now we're talking so much about competing and believing in yourself and just overall just pitching. But there's a metric piece of this too. You guys are getting better over time. You're throwing harder over time. You get better in your high school years. Where were you at that point? Like, in between sophomore and junior year, you just played 2 years of varsity baseball for Peachtree Ridge. You probably got some innings with them. Where were you at? Like, how hard were you throwing? What was your arsenal? What'd you look like?
So the fastball was kind of there. Freshman year, 81 to 83.
Okay.
But again, was able to just come in and throw strikes. Then that next year, so my sophomore year, got it up to 85.
Okay.
And then that first year with the Rangers, got it to 86, 87. And then that next fall, popped my first 9. Okay. And so
fall of your junior year.
Fall of my junior year was when I popped my first 9.
Okay.
And it was like those jumps, man, they were big.
Yeah.
They weren't, and I'll say this, as you start to throw harder, those jumps are going to get harder and harder to achieve. Going from 80 to 83 kind of happened naturally, but then after that point, I started training more. Mm-hmm. I started getting in the gym more. But I was throwing. Like, I was long tossing 2 to 3 times a week in different variations. Like, we don't have, our Velocity Max program. We have 2 built-in long toss days. But, man, I wanted to I enjoyed throwing. I loved throwing. And I think that helped keep my arm conditioned to where I could build off of that, because it's so difficult to start and stop and then start again. I kind of always just, like getting an oil change, just kind of always keeping the arm moving and trying to play as much baseball as I could, not just pitching, but I wanted to play the field. And I think doing all of those things kept my arm fresh and you mix in training with that, trying to get more explosive. At that age, I wasn't necessarily trying to squat the house or be the strongest guy in the weight room. I wanted to be explosive. I wanted to be quick. I wanted to be able to move down the mound and be an athlete on the mound. Like take my experience as an infielder and try to translate that to the mound as best as I can. And by doing that, by staying consistent with my throwing and by getting in the gym a little bit more, those jumps started to become a little bit more natural. And before I knew it, just by being consistent and putting in the work, like those jumps just kind of happened, and they presented themselves over. Each year was kind of gaining 2 to 3 miles an hour. And so by the time I'm a senior in high school, I'm anywhere from 89 to 92, and really kind of setting myself up for success going forward.
No, I love that, man. I think that you guys listening, go ahead and rewind all that. Listen to what Tyler's saying, because we're training a lot of guys right now in Velocity Max that are right there, same numbers. They're hitting the same numbers at the same time frames. And everybody's like fighting, scratching, clawing to figure out, where am I going to go? What schools? What do I look at? You're looking at a guy, and we're going to get to this point in the story, but you're looking at a guy who did those things, made those progressions, and figured out how to go to an SEC school. And I've got another story that I'll present to you guys in a little bit with a kid that kind of went through a similar path. And what I need all of you to understand is that this started by Tyler saying he's confident. You have to be confident in your ability. You say you never really doubted your ability to get people out.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're throwing 81 as a freshman or whether you're throwing 89 as a junior, 87 as a junior, whatever that number is, you said you hit. So now you've started to get some schools following you. The recruiting train has started. You're talking about getting that chance with the East Cobb Astros, and then you're getting ready to head into your senior year. So for you guys that are not there yet, or you guys that have even been there, you're going to know what I'm talking about. The guys who are not there won't. When you head into your senior year, you feel like the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You've been around a program. You've been doing something for a period of time now. You start to feel confident in that. That's great. But then you got to perform. So like go into like your senior year, how the recruiting thing developed, and then how in the heck did you ultimately wind up at South Carolina? Things must have really started to ramp up.
So going back to that, throwing against the San Diego show when I was still with the East Cobb Rangers, this was at like the beginning of July. This was East Cobb Field 1 under the lights, and not really that many people in terms of like fans. It's just a travel ball game at 8 o'clock at night. Well, it just so happened that Georgia Tech, Clemson, and South Carolina scouts were there, and I threw well. I ended up losing. We lost 2-1, but threw really really well. Um, hit some good numbers on the radar gun, and those calls started to come in. This was right around when you could open up to start talking to college coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So the timing just worked out perfectly. Threw well, and my dream for playing baseball was to play at a big college. I wanted to play at a big name college, and I wanted to do whatever I could to put myself in that position. And like I didn't know who was there. I wasn't worried about who was there.
Probably was better for you at the time.
It was.
Right.
It was probably better that nobody came up with, Sammy Esposito's here from South Carolina.
Right.
I just wanted to go. I just went out and pitch. And that next day got a couple, hey, we're interested in coming to see you throw. So then, and that's the thing, they see you, but then the work starts.
Yeah. Right.
Because here's the thing, over that next month was able to throw against some good teams, threw well. I threw against FTB Chandler Bats down in Florida. Pete Alonso was on that team,
Right.
and JJ Schwartz, who played at Florida. Just some big name recruits, and I with 7 errors behind me, gave up 10 runs. I don't know how many earned, unearned, but didn't feel. I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
South Carolina and Georgia Tech and Clemson. They came to see me throw that game.
Right.
They told me they were going to come see me throw, and we got smacked.
Right.
And I was like, okay, that's it. Like, that's it. And the pitching coach from Carolina was there.
Yeah.
And he called me after. He said, "Man, I really liked how you competed." He did not even mention the score. He did not even mention the errors, the umpires. All he cared about, he said, "I liked how you competed."
So listen to this, guys. Like this is a lesson right here, and this is really, I had a conversation with my team that I coach. I coach a 17U team right now, and I had a conversation with them, just basically saying, yeah, guys, travel ball is not all about winning and losing. However, a winning mentality, like I'm gonna go out and win, is a necessity. And even more so if you're pitching against a team with guys like Pete Alonso and JJ Schwartz, who are ready to just smack the absolute crap out of the ball. You have to have a competitive attitude and persona that you portray.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like you said, that's exactly what they were looking for. They probably already knew who you were going to pitch against, and they probably wanted to see, let's see how that goes. Not let's see if he can win the game, but let's see how he does in that situation with his back up against the wall.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it was, like I said, it was a hot summer day at 9 o'clock in the morning, and just the team. I was still on the Rangers at this point, so this was 1 week after we played in the 17 UWWBA, and then this was the 16 UWWBA the weekend after. So they were down there for that month, watching all the talent and stuff like that in those tournaments, and so they were able to come see me back-to-back weeks. They were able to come see me throw
Right.
back-to-back weeks.
Right.
And like I said, one outing I was really happy with. We ended up losing, but I was happy with. The second outing, I was like, it's my chances of going to pitch here are done. Because once I knew on my radar that they were there, I was like, dude, I want to go pitch here. Like, this is where I want to go. That was at that point, that was my goal, was to go pitch there. And I talked to Jerry Myers after that, the pitching coach at Carolina at the time, and like I said, all he cared about was how I handled myself on the mound, not throwing my hands up when my guys weren't making plays. You know what it is. Let's just keep attacking hitters. Let's just see what happens. We ended up losing. It was a bad loss, but it was one of those. It was one of those that you learned a lot from.
Well, Greg and I talked about this last week. So much of what you show college coaches has nothing to do with actually succeeding or failing.
Mm-hmm.
Are you professional? Do you give them some next level vibes in the way you carry yourself? Your thought process on the field, your body language, the way you handle failure. Like I said to one of our guys, he's a Velocity Max guy. I said to him the last tournament we played this fall, he was only throwing a few innings. We knew that. 2 innings, lights out, up to 88. Looking good, looking better than he's ever looked. Got to the 3rd inning and he kind of hit a wall. And I said from the dugout, calmly, this is your test. You guys need to understand that you have a test when you pitch in front of a coach. You should want a test. You don't want to pitch against the team that you can trounce 15-0 and strike out 15. They already know that those hitters are below you.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see you get tested. So in a game when you're going to pitch against or play, man, it could be hitters too. If you're going to play against a team and you've got college coaches coming to watch you play, you want to get tested and then you want to rise above your test. That's like the perfect stage to show a college coach what he wants to see.
Mm-hmm.
So like for you, that happened right at the right
test.
time.
And I'm going to say it's so important how you perform on the field. Like, I went to the showcases. I did those things, kind of trying to get my name out there, trying to get coaches to see me running the 60-yard dash, doing the velocity throw across the infield. And as great as that is, they want to see how you play. They want to see how you can compete. against another team, and it's tough.
Right.
It's tough to do, but for a college coach, they want to see how you prepare for games, how you perform in those games, and even if your performance isn't great, how you handle yourself when you fail. How you handle failure is a massive part of playing at that next level.
Totally agree. Totally agree. So awesome. That like this is gold stuff, guys. You're hearing you're hearing a testimonial from a guy who experienced this firsthand. Now, your senior year, you go through your senior year. Like, when did you decide? When did they offer? Like, when did you decide you were going to South Carolina? Did you get an official offer? Like, what did that look like? When did it happen? And then, like, when it's time for your senior year to be done and you're ready, prepared for college baseball, then what?
So it was funny after that outing that I thought was no good and that I didn't perform well. 2 weeks later, they ended up offering me and went up for an unofficial visit and ended up committing at the beginning of August. So, and I'll say this: that whole senior year, even after you committed, you're not done yet. They can pull that. They can pull that opportunity just as fast as they give it to you.
Right.
And so it took the pressure of knowing where I'm going to go away, but it didn't change what I wanted to do when I was on the field. I still wanted to pitch my best, and that senior year was the best baseball that I played in my entire career. Um, that was the best that I've ever felt on the mound. Um, East Cobb Pitcher of the Year that year, Gwinnett County Pitcher of the Year that year from my high school. So I didn't use just being committed kind of say, okay, you can take your foot off the gas. Um, I used it as, man, I'm excited to go play at this place, but I just love playing baseball and I want to keep pitching.
Right.
And so, senior year was awesome. Ended up playing that summer going into Carolina. So that summer played with the East Cobb Astros, the 18U Astros, and then you start feeling good about yourself. Oh man, I've got it figured out. We're gonna go in and we're gonna make a statement freshman year. And I always say this, like, you go from being a shark in a pond to being a shark in a shark tank with some pretty big sharks.
And then you're talking about being up at South Carolina.
Being up at South
right?
Carolina.
Yeah.
At that time, got recruited, lucky enough to get recruited at the #1 recruiting class in the country. I mean, we had some really high expectations. Carolina's coming off of 3 College World Series appearances,
Right.
finals appearances, 2 out of 3 years winning back-to-back national championships. So expectations are through the roof. We have a brand new coach who stepped in the year before I got there, but we were primed for making some runs.
So what was that like when you got there? How many guys were there? Right, like a college team's dressing 25, 28.
So our
how
class.
many guys were there when you got to
Yeah.
on campus your freshman year? How many guys were there that were going out for South Carolina baseball?
So we had our recruiting class alone was 19 guys.
Yeah.
You got to take into account all the other guys that are there too. So I think in fall practices it was something like 47 guys for 37 spot or 35 spots.
It's a lot.
And so then it's time to work in the fall. You go from working your whole career in middle school and high school, proving yourself, get into that spot where you finally commit, and then you start from square one again.
Right. So what was that like, man? You got up there, like what was the fall practice schedule like? How often were you guys playing and practicing? What was the training regimen like? Did they take the pitchers all in and start teaching you guys a system right off the bat? Like, what did that look like? How was it different from going through travel ball and high school ball? You're in the SEC.
The lifting regimen was cranked up a notch. It wasn't okay, you're gonna go do your agility and your lifting work a couple times a week in high school just to see if we can get you stronger. It's like you get there and your ass is getting stronger. You're going to get in the weight room. The 6 o'clock workout started. Testing you mentally just in terms of every single day. Every day. Like, they tell you, oh, it's optional. You can come in. I mean, we're off on Sunday. It's optional to come in, but
you better be there.
But your ass better be
you
there.
better be there.
You better be there. It's not optional. And so it like I said, it cranked up a couple notches, and from the beginning was, we're going to get you on a lifting schedule, we're going to get you on a throwing schedule, we're going to get, obviously you got school to account for that as well, but the one thing that was great about being at Carolina was they did a really good job of having everything scheduled out for you. You just had to follow the schedule.
Right.
And put the work in.
Program, routine.
A routine. That was the biggest thing that Carolina taught me, was getting into a routine. And how important that routine is. It wasn't just getting text messages saying this is when things are going to be done. It was, you lived by that regimen. You had your groups of pitchers that you were going to be in. It wasn't everybody's clumped together. They split you up into smaller groups. So you're working with like-minded guys. A lot of it, when I first got in there, was the freshmen and sophomores that were new to the program. But, you got to the field, you put the same uniform on. You don't do your thing. It's not about you.
You got a practice uniform that you're supposed to wear.
And it's a certain color each day.
Right. Don't wear the wrong uniform.
You don't even wear the wrong socks.
You wear the wrong shit, you go home. Or you get cut.
Yeah. If you can't abide by the system, you're not going to be a part of it. And so that's where it was like, okay, this is not an individuality. This is not individuality anymore. This isn't me trying to get to somewhere. I'm here now. Now you got to be a part of the team. And the team's going to do things a certain way. They've been doing it before you got there, and they're going to continue to do it after you leave. And so you gotta go by the system. You gotta go by the schedule. Each day is an opportunity to, it's a dogfight. It's not just the games anymore. It's how do you lift? How do you carry yourself? How do you go about your throwing? Everything is so scheduled out to a point where it's like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's overwhelming, but you go from high school, waking up for school, going to practice, and you're done for the day, and you don't really have to put that much thought into it, to where you get to college ball, and you've got your four different classes around a massive campus, and you've got to get to the field, and you're doing things a specific way. It's not just show up and go. It's show up and get ready to do things the way that we want you to do them. They're going to be done this way. And you do it because it produces results.
Right.
So that was the main shift from going to high school ball to big time kind of SEC school ball, was like, you're always competing.
Right. So, and you hear these stories, about guys, they're talented in high school. They play travel ball at a certain level, and they go to an SEC school. They get that opportunity, and sometimes you go in and you got to earn your stripes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they don't play right away. I had a kid a couple years ago. He was always a good pitcher. From 15 to 16 to 17, and then into his senior year, he got better every year, to the point where at the very end of his senior year, he's pitching in the high school state playoffs, and he's hitting 95. He's sitting 93. And, along the process, into his junior year, he had some D2 schools looking at him. He had some D3 schools looking at him. He had some low-level D1s. And from the beginning, he's like, nah, I want to pitch at a big boy school. If I can't, I'm just going to go to a big boy school, Power 5. And, hey, man, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. Well, he finally started getting that attention when he's sitting 93 and he's tapping 95. So University of Georgia ended up kind of extending a walk-on situation, not a scholarship. It was so late in the game, there were no scholarships, and he's there now, and he's having to prove himself, and who knows what's going to happen to this individual. it's a dogfight when you get there. Like, what did you experience there? Did you get any time your freshman year? A lot of guys end up getting redshirted. It doesn't mean that's the end of your career and it's on to the next guy. It's just a piece of the maturation process. What did that look like your freshman year?
So I got there, ended up getting a preferred walk-on redshirt type deal my freshman year. We worked in over the course of the next couple years, you were going to be on scholarship, but we don't have enough scholarships to come in your freshman year. Like I said, my goal um, was to go pitch at South Carolina.
Was that a slap in the face when it was like, hey man, no scholarship, red shirt? Like initially as a 18, 19 year old, was that tough?
Yeah, hearing that because I felt like I threw well enough in my freshman class to get that opportunity to be on the was it 20 because I was on the 35, right? Just wasn't traveling.
Yeah, right.
So they kind of at the beginning of the season were like, hey, you might get your opportunity, but we don't want to burn it. We don't want to burn your red shirt. We don't want to burn it. And 3 weeks into the season, they were like, well, we're going to redshirt you. We want you to get stronger. You're going to still be, you're still a part of the team. You're still doing everything that the 35 guys are doing. But we want you to get.
How hard were you throwing at that time?
I was right around 91.
Yeah.
Right around 91.
How big were you?
185 pounds.
At 5'11",
6 foot.
6 foot on the dot. So, and I'm bringing this up because, a lot of kids that we're developing right now in here, we got a ton of high school players in here training. The bulk of our guys are high school guys. We have college guys. We have a couple pro guys. We have some younger guys. But the bulk of our guys that come in this building and that we train are high school guys. And just so you guys know, 6 foot, 180, 185 pounds, that's kind of just a general size for a college baseball
Nothing
player.
Crazy.
You weren't huge. Had a good arm, sitting low 90s. But did you feel like maybe that was part of the reason why they made the decision to say, hey, maturity-wise, we need a little more out of him. Need him to get a little bigger. Need him to throw a little bit harder. At a Power 5 SEC school, do you think that was a piece of it? Setting aside the fact that, hey, you did pitch well enough, you thought.
Right.
But sometimes that's not enough. What does that do to your psyche?
It's a reality check. Because throughout your entire career, you were good enough. You were the guy.
Yep.
And then you come in and you realize, well, there's a lot of other guys here. And yeah, that initial, they didn't just say, okay, this is cut and dry. You're going to be redshirted, and that's that. It was like, okay, if we might use you. So it was kind of just like keeping that. It was kind of like a dog and a treat where it was like
dangling the carrot
a little bit.
But to that point, Tyler, like, was there any point in time where they had to sit down and said, for us to be able to do that for you, to use you, you're going to have to do X, Y, and Z. You're going to have to do A, B, and C. Like, did they lay that out for you? Because some coaches will do a really good job of laying out the, hey, man, like, we love you. We think you're competitive. We think you are good enough to pitch. But there's also 6 other guys that are good enough to pitch that, quite frankly, are ahead of you right now. You're going to have to do this, this, and this to be able to get into that mix. Were those conversations? Did those conversations happen? Did they happen later on down the road? Was it something you had to initiate? Because ball players, I think you need to know that. You need to have those conversations because at 18, 19, you're not always old enough, mature enough, wise enough to be able to go through those things in your head. It helps to have a coach, a mentor, somebody you can talk through these things with to actually just lay out the perspective of, hey, man, it's not that you're not good enough. This just might not be the place for you, or you're not ready yet, and we're going to get you ready.
Yeah, and I wish I did have that older presence that had gone through it before. The person I talked to was my dad, right? But my dad never went through any of this stuff before.
Sure.
He understood how competitive it was, and he was proud that I was throwing at, I had the opportunity to go play at a big university, but not in terms of the coaches kind of saying you need to do X, X, and X. It was, right now you just don't fit into what we think you're going to be, which is going to be a starting slash long relief kind of pitcher. At that time we had one of our Friday night guy at the time's throwing for the Rangers, Jordan Montgomery right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Will Crow, he's in the bullpen with the Pirates right now. I mean, it's you're in line. You're in line, and you've gotta if you do get those opportunities, make like that's when I realized, like, man, like, you've got to really take advantage of these opportunities because there is a next guy up.
Yeah. No, 100%, man. And we'll dive into, I'll let you kind of tell how the rest of your experiences at South Carolina went and the things you saw, and if you've got any stories. But like, I talk to a lot of guys about this, a lot of players, high school ages, college ages, guys that are trying to play pro ball now. And listen, guys, I didn't play pro ball. I played college baseball. I got my ass kicked through the college process. I played Division III baseball. I certainly, you're talking about being 5'11", 6 foot, 180 pounds. I never got there.
Right.
Right. So I always battled that piece, just not passing the eye test for that high of a level of play. Like, I think people need to understand you can dream. You can want to play SEC baseball. You can want to play pro baseball. And you might just be good enough. But understand that there are however many guys out there that are just as good, if not better, that maybe have a better, they pass the eye test, they show better, their metrics maybe show better. You might, listen, if I gave a super talented kid 500 at bats, but and he could hit 320 and hit 20 home runs and steal 40 bases and play second base and play every day, that would be awesome. Anybody would take that. The problem is you don't know what somebody's going to do. You can only project. So if there's another kid that is 6'4", weighs 220 pounds, runs faster than that guy, hits the ball harder than that guy, has a better eye than that guy, and looks the part, passes the test, passes the eye test, they're probably going to give that other guy the chance. And that's just the reality of it. So I'm sure you went through that and felt what that feels like at South Carolina. Like, did that fuel you? How did that help you migrate into, like, your sophomore year, your second season, your redshirted freshman year?
Yeah.
And then ultimately, man, like, I'll let you tell the story, Tyler, but you weren't a first-round draft pick.
No.
You didn't get a chance to do that. So because of that, because of how hard you had to work just to get to a certain level, what did that do for you in your love for baseball?
I'm going to tell you, after that redshirt freshman season, I got the opportunity to play in the CPL with the Wilmington Sharks. And, throughout the spring with Carolina, I was like, man, I want to play so bad. I know that I can help this team. I know I can do this, that, and the other. It's kind of already been written, and it's already been written that, we're gonna redshirt you, and we're gonna start fresh the next year. So I went into Wilmington, threw really, really well. Threw really well for the Sharks. That kind of re-energized me going into my sophomore year, and gave me back that confidence that, because that freshman year was the first real knock as a pitcher that I ever received. That was a gut punch. It was like, okay, you're not as good as you think you are, and you got to learn from it. And so I went and threw in Wilmington, and and enjoyed my time up there, and that kind of carried me through my next couple years at Carolina. But it's every year is like starting, unless you're a weekend starter, unless you're slated in as the weekend starter, you got a new crop of guys coming in every single year, and you got to constantly prove yourself. And I had a pretty good sophomore year. more in the long relief kind of, obviously everybody wants to be a weekend starter. We were loaded, and but was able to throw in the midweeks, start in midweeks, and then throw in long relief on the weekends. And so just, man, I'm gonna say one thing, like the consistency, staying consistent, and 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 honestly, man, like being under the microscope all the time at such the media's there every single practice. There's media everywhere. Like making sure you got good people around you, making sure that if you're going to go play in these high level programs, like making sure you got people to talk to. I mean, we had a team psychologist that, Doc, rest in peace, man, just unbelievable human being. But like they did that, and he was accessible to every single athlete,
Right.
because of the pressure that is just being a part of being in a big program, and using those resources and not just going into your shell because it's hard, because it is hard. Like that's what you sign up for. You're happy when you commit, and then when you go in there you realize, like, this is where the work starts again.
Yeah.
And you know being able to roll with those punches, and being able to like learn how to fail,
Right.
and learn how to get back up, and learn how to um do whatever you can to buy into the team and be a good teammate, and be try to progress yourself as an athlete as much as you can.
Right.
And because the work's not going to stop. If you stop working, you're gone.
Right.
Every single day is you're doing something. You are, that is your job. And now you see guys getting paid for it.
Right.
The guys are making money off of it, and it's a job. And I mean, you understand it too, because I mean, there is a certain amount of work, the everyday grind that goes into being a collegiate athlete, that guys in high school think that they're doing it, but it gets ramped up a notch when, especially if you're going to play for these bigger programs that expect you to win.
Yeah.
They expect you to win.
I was just about to say that, man, because it doesn't matter if you're Division 1 or if you're Division 3. High school baseball and college baseball are not the same.
No.
The speed is different. You're dealing with bigger, faster, stronger athletes. Just the level of skill across the different levels of college baseball, yeah, there is a disparity there. And really the depth, right? You have guys on the lowest level of college baseball rosters that, if they're a dude on their team, they might be able to go play at a D1 level or at a Power 5 school. It's just the depth, right? Like the bottom guys on the rosters are not quite as good as the bottom guys on a Power 5 roster. But to your point, you have to be prepared for what that college experience is going to be. College baseball is up a notch. It's faster. Guys are stronger. The dedication and the focus needs to be, like, you're not going to face scrubs like you did in high school. No offense to anybody who's a scrub in high school. They're scrubs. I mean, there's guys that are not as good in high school and still get a chance to play. In college, you don't really get to look at somebody and say, "Hi, he's not that good." Not everybody can play in college.
Yeah.
Even at the lower levels of college baseball, guys can play the game. They're good ball players. So, like, just wrapping this thing up, man. I mean, and just talk. I mean, what I wanted your message to be today to guys is, like, what do you need? Everybody says, I want to play D1. I want to be a D1 baseball player. If you had to sum that up into like a short paragraph, how do you become a D1 baseball player? You could be great in high school, or you could just be a late bloomer and okay in high school. There's guys that are like, you were the late bloomer a little bit. You figured out how to get yourself to an SEC school. What's like the one message you would send to people who say, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to become a D1 baseball player. I'm going to at least get there, and then I'm going to figure out how to succeed.
I can't say this enough, and it's cliche, but you gotta believe in yourself. You gotta believe that even if you aren't the best player on your team, if you're batting ninth, buy in and be a good teammate. be somebody that's reliable and stay consistent. Like, consistency, I might have done it a different way. I might have, maybe the throwing that I did wasn't exactly what I needed to do to get to 95. Maybe the workouts that I did, I mean, I trained with the trainers that I trained with were football guys.
Right.
I didn't train with specific baseball specific athletes or trainers, but I was consistent. There wasn't, from the time I was 12, if it was playing backyard baseball with my friends, I was consistent with the days that I worked. I did something baseball related. I didn't just, even if I'm taking a break to keep my arm healed up, I loved watching baseball. And that's something that maybe I was, and I still love baseball with all of I love the game of baseball. I love pitching. And that was some of why I think I was able to get to where I got, was my love for the game. And not everybody's going to share that same love that I shared, but if you've realized that you got it, that God's given you the ability and given you a stage to present your talents on, like, stay consistent, keep working, and try not to get caught up in the big picture just like 1% every single day. Like, do whatever you can to take that next step. I think a lot of guys nowadays, they want to see the instant results. They want to see, oh, I went into the gym for a month straight, I should be good now. I'm good. This is years. It's years. It's staying on the carousel and just working, doing something. It doesn't have to be 100% workout. And I know this is way longer than a paragraph.
Yeah.
But my closing message to all of this is, stay consistent and try to better yourself in whatever aspect of the game that you feel like you need the most work on, and be confident in yourself as a player. I wasn't every day. I wasn't 100%. Right. I'm gonna tell you this too, guys. You're not gonna be 100%. You're gonna be playing with some aches and pains.
Right.
You're not gonna wake up on a day that you're pitching and say, "Oh man, I am ready to go. My arm feels so good."
Right.
But I believed in myself. Even on my bad days, I could still get you out. Yeah. So having some confidence, having some consistency, and enjoying what you do, it goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure, man. No, there's no better way to put it than that. I mean, guys, you have to understand there are going to be guys out there who are better than you. Mm-hmm. Can't do nothing about that. Do not let them outwork you. Figure out a process for yourself to not let them outwork you. And then stick to that process, trust that process, and fall in love with that process.
Yeah.
And you'll continue to love the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I love it, Tyler. It's good stuff. Guys, if you like this content, if you enjoyed the stories from Tyler, like it, comment below, ask any questions you might have. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications. We're going to have more guests on. Tyler, obviously not a guest. He's one of our guys. But we're going to have some good stories for you guys and some more good content from the Juice Box from Atlanta, Georgia, Athletek Podcast, Baseball Development Show. T, thanks for doing it.
Keep getting after it, boys.